The planet Nareen, renowned throughout the galaxy for its unmatched beauty and formidable army, symbolized safety and peace for Princess Alara's people. For centuries, celestial guardians and colossal warships had silently patrolled the space around the planet, warding off potential threats and allowing the Nareen people to live in peace. But one day, that peace was shattered. Alara sat in the throne room, lost in thought. As she gazed at the lights from the boundless depths of the sky, a palace guard entered, his breathing labored, sweat glistening on his forehead. In a whispering tone, he said, "Your Highness, we have received a message from the depths of space. The Chaos Army is coming for us." These two words froze Alara's blood. The Chaos Army was one of the most feared forces in the galaxy. Known for devastation, pillaging, and death, this army was a ruthless war machine that turned every world it crossed to ashes. Fear quickly gave way to a sense of duty within Alara's heart. The future of her planet, her people, and her kingdom rested on her shoulders. Alara sent an order to the commander of the Celestial Guards to mobilize all planetary defense systems. Yet, soon after, replies from their allies began to disappoint her one by one. Kingdoms from across the galaxy, unwilling to confront the Chaos Army, left Alara's call unanswered. She realized her options for protecting her people were limited. Their fate now rested entirely on her. To save her people and her planet, she needed more. She needed a greater power. Desperately, she began poring over ancient war records in the palace library, studying the histories of war heroes from across the galaxy. One name surfaced repeatedly: Selim. This human warrior, feared as one of the deadliest, was spoken of as if he were a legend. But this legend held some of the darkest secrets of the galaxy. Selim, cold-blooded and ruthless, was known as a harbinger of death on the battlefield, leaving no enemy standing. Yet for Alara, there was no other choice. She had to find him. Finding Selim wasn't easy. The princess ventured into the most remote and dangerous corners of the galaxy, following traces that hinted at Selim's whereabouts. When she finally reached the planet where Selim was hiding, she sensed the dangers of this world the moment she landed. The local populace was ruled by armed gangs and crime lords. As Alara and her guards made their way through the darkened streets of this planet, they were constantly under hostile gazes. One of the guards, keeping his hands ready on his weapon, scanned the crowd warily. "Your Highness, the people here don't seem very friendly towards humans," he warned. Alara replied with cold determination, "Don't worry. If we can find Selim, we'll gain a far greater enemy than all these gangs combined." Trying to hide her fear, she continued onward. Eventually, Alara and her guards arrived at an old trading hub, where they found themselves face to face with Selim in a large room. With his piercing gaze and hardened features, Selim looked at Alara, seemingly unsurprised to see a princess on this planet. Alara swallowed slightly before beginning to speak. "Selim, my kingdom is under threat from the Chaos Army. My planet and my people need your help. I have come seeking your aid." Selim stared at her with an expressionless gaze. "What does your planet mean to me?" he asked in a calm, detached tone. Alara took a deep breath, pausing briefly before answering with newfound resolve. "I know you understand what it means to protect a world. If my kingdom falls, even a warrior as strong as you will have no other path of resistance left in history. And if you can eliminate this threat, I promise you legendary rewards." A faint glimmer of interest sparked in Selim's face. As he evaluated the princess's offer, he kept his cold demeanor, though something seemed to awaken in the depths of his eyes, a memory from the past. Finally, he nodded slightly. "I'll help," he said. "But my rules will apply. You won't interfere with my methods." Alara, knowing she had no other choice, agreed to his terms. Thus, Selim and Alara embarked on a dangerous journey into the most treacherous regions of the galaxy. Princess Alara and Selim set off for an unknown planet where one of the Chaos Army's bases was rumored to be located. As Alara's royal ship approached orbit under Selim's instructions, a dark atmosphere surrounded them. This region was one of the galaxy's forsaken, forgotten planets known for its chaos and brutality. Although a tinge of fear stirred within the princess, knowing that a legendary warrior like Selim was by her side gave her strength. When they landed on the planet's surface, Selim gave Alara a stern look. "Follow me, but stay silent. The enemies here won't forgive the slightest mistake," he said. Alara nodded in agreement and followed him. As they advanced toward the base, Alara and Selim encountered scouting parties of the Chaos Army. These massive soldiers clad in deadly armor couldn't detect the two shadows approaching. Selim signaled Alara to stop and silently drew his sword. Moving almost silently, he reached the first soldier and drove his blade into the enemy's throat in a single swift motion. The soldier collapsed without a sound. Selim's movement was filled with speed and precision. Alara couldn't look away as she watched Selim's deadly silence. While she was lost in thought, marveling at the kind of training this man must have gone through, another soldier noticed her and raised his weapon to sound the alarm. But Selim, with quick reflexes, hurled his weapon, hitting the soldier's forehead. As the enemy fell, the princess took a deep breath to regain her composure. "This is only the beginning," Selim said in a cold tone. The two continued infiltrating the base quietly. Moving along the corridors, they engaged in a few skirmishes with the Chaos Army soldiers. Each clash revealed Selim's combat techniques, which were almost like a deadly dance. Wielding his sword with mastery, he took down enemies one by one, targeting the weakest points in their armor. Watching Selim's fearless bravery, Alara began to understand how he had become such a feared name on the battlefield. As they neared the heart of the base, they finally came face to face with Velker, one of the enemy generals. Velker was a massive figure in black armor, smirking as he looked at Alara. "The princess herself has come all this way. That must mean your kingdom is truly desperate," he taunted. Selim took a step toward Velker and replied coldly, "We came here only to bury you and your army in history." A momentary flicker of rage crossed Velker's eyes as he drew his sword and lunged at Selim. Their confrontation quickly turned into an intense, fast-paced duel. Each of Velker's strikes came down with tremendous force, but Selim skillfully dodged, watching for any openings in his opponent's defenses. Meanwhile, Alara fought off enemy soldiers at the rear, using her energy pistol to repel attacks and bringing down foes one by one with the help of her guards. As Selim's and Velker's swords clashed, sparks flew around them, and the cold sound of metal echoed through the space. Selim observed Velker's strength and speed, waiting for the exact moment when his opponent would reveal a weakness. When Velker finally made the slightest mistake, Selim didn't waste the opportunity. He quickly struck to the enemy's right side, driving his sword into a gap in Velker's armor. Velker collapsed with a scream. "This isn't over," Velker gasped, writhing in pain. Selim calmly withdrew his sword and replied, "It's not over, but it's the end for you," delivering the final blow to his enemy. As they advanced further into the base, the number of enemies increased. Now, not only Velker's men but heavily armed soldiers of the Chaos Army also stood in their way. Alara and Selim encountered enemies at every turn, each skirmish adding to their exhaustion. Yet Selim fought tirelessly, overcoming the opponents with relentless energy. At one point, when they found themselves surrounded by enemy soldiers, Selim sharply glanced at Alara and suddenly shielded her. As the enemy opened heavy fire, he positioned himself as a barrier in front of the princess, blocking the bullets with his body. Alara's eyes welled up with tears, realizing that this warrior wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice himself. With one final surge of energy, Selim swung his sword at the enemies. One by one they fell, but his armor was marked with countless bullet impacts, though his gaze remained as fierce as ever. Taking a deep breath, Alara looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice filled with slight worry and gratitude. Selim looked at her and gave a faint smile. "For me, fighting isn't a purpose. It's a destiny. But since I saw the courage in your eyes, I've found meaning in winning this battle." Finally, the pair reached the base's main power source and worked together to sabotage the infrastructure of the Chaos Army. With the sound of a massive explosion, the base began to burn, and they quickly returned to their ship, bidding the base farewell. By the end of this chapter, Alara had not only taken a step toward saving her kingdom, but also began to understand the deep scars and fears hidden behind Selim's dark soul. After destroying the main base of the Chaos Army, Princess Alara and Selim quickly returned to planet Nareen. However, despite the blow it suffered, the Chaos Army was still strong and was now en route to Nareen, seeking revenge. As soon as Alara and Selim set foot on the planet, they began preparing defense strategies. For the people of Nareen, this last stand was their only hope to resist the Chaos Army and protect their home. In the throne room, Alara spoke with the Sky Guard's commander while Selim stood in the corner, silently reviewing the battle plans. Finally, he turned to the princess and said, "The Chaos Army is large in numbers, but we know their weaknesses. We'll shape our strategy accordingly." As the massive ships of the Chaos Army entered Narine's atmosphere, the Sky Guards stood ready. The sky filled with the dark shadows of the enemy's vessels, while Princess Alara, with Selim by her side, took her place on the front lines. She was determined to lead this battle herself. Waves of Chaos soldiers poured from the colossal ships landing on the planet's surface, and the Sky Guards launched their counterattack. The sky turned into a colorful hellscape of exploding laser beams and energy blasts. At the front, Selim led the charge, advancing directly into the enemy lines. Chaos soldiers with steel-hard armor and towering frames tried to stop him, but Selim's movements were as precise and sharp as a battle artist's. Each swing of his sword brought down another enemy soldier. Alara, advancing behind him, couldn't help but admire Selim's combat skills. As Alara fought alongside her soldiers, she felt her courage growing stronger. When an enemy soldier came at her, she deftly dispatched him with her weapon. The soldiers fighting alongside her were in awe, inspired by their princess's bravery on the front lines. As Alara glanced toward Selim, who was pushing ever deeper into the heart of the Chaos Army, she realized that his presence gave her the strength to conquer her fears. The battle grew more intense, and the Chaos Army's attacks became even more brutal. The Sky Guards' numbers quickly dwindled. When the Chaos Army's commander arrived at the front lines in a massive war machine, all eyes turned to him. This commander, Drexen, was known for his imposing armor and ruthless strength that struck fear into all his enemies. Drexen raised his sword high and shouted at Selim. "Are you the famed human warrior, Selim? I've heard so many tales of you, but let's see how you fare in a real challenge," he roared, his voice echoing across the battlefield. Selim remained unfazed by Drexen's challenge. He slowly lifted his sword, ready to face him. As the two warriors walked toward each other, even the surrounding soldiers stepped back. The entire battlefield fell silent, waiting for the clash between these two giants. Drexen made the first move, swinging his massive sword at Selim. Selim dodged with a quick maneuver and countered, targeting a weak spot in Drexen's armor. Though his blade merely glanced off Drexen's armor, it caused him to lose his balance. Blow by blow, the two fighters grew stronger with each strike. Selim's sword moved so quickly it was nearly invisible, countering Drexen's every move. Eventually, Drexen managed to land a powerful punch to Selim's abdomen. Selim staggered backward in pain but didn't fall. His eyes shone with an intensity never seen before. With newfound resolve, he lunged forward, delivering a series of attacks that found the cracks in Drexen's armor and drove his blade straight into the enemy's heart. Drexen, gasping for breath, sank to his knees and finally fell to the ground. Drexen's death sent a wave of fear through the ranks of the Chaos Army. Without their commander, they lost coordination and quickly began retreating. The Sky Guards and the people of Narine seized the opportunity to push their enemies back. As the Chaos Army ships fled in desperation, Princess Alara and Selim watched the battlefield in triumph. At the war's end, the people of Narine welcomed Princess Alara and Selim with great joy. They were celebrated as heroes who had defended their planet. Alara offered Selim a reward as a token of her gratitude, but he simply nodded in refusal. When Alara realized he was preparing to leave, she said, "You could stay with us, Selim. We'll always need someone like you." Selim smiled slightly. "My place is on the battlefield, princess. But if ever you need me again, I'll be here," he said, walking away in silence. As Selim left Narine, he left behind a legacy. Princess Alara told her people the story of a hero, Selim, an honorable warrior with a dark past. The people of Narine would never forget his sacrifices, and Selim's name would echo across the galaxy for centuries. As the kingdom returned to peace following this victory, Princess Alara kept the memory of Selim close to her heart. Across the galaxy, planets heard this tale of heroism and came to admire humanity's world of secrets and sacrifices even more. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye, see you in the next story.